Howdy folks, welcome back to my World of Tanks replays with Almighty Jingles. Today we're in the garage with the Panzer 38H735F, hereinafter referred to as the Micro Mouse, because that is far too much of a mouthful. And there's a reason why they call this thing the Micro Mouse. That's because of its armour coverage. It has 40mm of armour, turret and hull, front, sides and rear. And unusually for a German tank, there is actually some sloping going on there, and that's because it isn't a German tank. It was a French infantry tank, and it was captured in the fall of France in 1940 and 1941 when the German army invaded Western Europe. And these things were basically rebadged, had a fresh coat of paint slapped on them, and the Germans called them Panzer 38H735Fs. So at the time, these were actually pretty good little tanks. They were underpowered, but very, very strong. The French tanks were actually better than the German tanks, technically. It was just the way the Germans used the tanks. These tanks were tied down to the infantry battalions that they supported, rather than being able to operate independently like the Panzer battalions. But enough of history. How does this thing perform in the game? Well, before we go any further, because I know somebody's going to point it out in the comments, yes, I know my name is in blue in the garage. I have been a very, very bad Jingles. Cut a long story short, I deliberately shot a teammate. He was just pissing me off too much. Guy in a lol tractor in a low tier game decided that he was going to play dodge 'em cars with me, and he rammed me, he blocked me, he would drive up alongside me and grind his tracks up against mine, and it was just getting so frustrating. I put a shot into him, and then he returned fire, and so I killed him. It's not big, it's not hard, it ain't clever, but that's what I did, and that's why my name's in blue, and I have to be a very good boy from now on, or the game will get me. So that's got that out of the way. Let's move on to the tank itself. Tier 2 tank. Premium tank. I'm not even sure you can still buy it in the store anymore. Let's have a look. German light tanks. Yes, include what's in the garage. No, it's not available for sale anymore. It may appear in the gift shop every now and then, but you certainly cannot buy it in-game. So, yeah, this is another one of those tanks I'm going to be holding on to, because it is just so incredibly good, and it's because of that armour. 40mm turret, hull, front, side and rear. Just as an example of how good the armour is, there's the gun it gets, and that has an average penetration of 41mm. Generally speaking, it has a really hard time penetrating itself. When you come up against another one of these, it's very, very difficult to find a spot on it where you get a green armour penetration marker on the targeting reticle. Usually it's orange for, yeah, it might go through, but then again it might not. It does have weaknesses, however, and that's the driver's hatch at the front here, but it is kind of sloped. This little hatch up here is kind of a weak spot. Doesn't really have that many weak spots at the side. Under the tracks here can be penetrated if the gun's good enough, but in tier 2 games, well, most people are using auto aim and they're spamming with autocannons, which have lousy penetration, and that's what makes this thing practically invulnerable. Now, there are certain tanks that have guns that can give you problems, one of which is the BT2. You need to pay these things a lot of respect when you're riding around in your little Micro Mouse, because the gun on that thing has 58 average penetration, and generally speaking will be able to penetrate you from most angles. If you come across a BT7, and you will, let's have a look, where's the BT7? Yeah, the tier 3 BT7, that also has a nasty gun. I think it's the 37mm this. Yep, same gun, 58mm of penetration. That can give you problems as well. But generally speaking, most tanks that shoot at you when you're driving this little bugger are going to be bounce city. And of course, because we've all played the game a bit and we know how this thing works, if you angle it even just a little bit, it makes it that much harder to penetrate, and that's something that hardly anybody else bothers doing or even knows to do in tier 2 games. And as you can see, I've spent Well, how much does a tier 2 tank cost? Let's have a look. That's the selling price. Let's go to the store. There we go. Panzer II will cost 3,000 credits. Well, I've got, again, camo neck, because I had some spare. Improved ventilation, which costs, I don't know, how much does that cost to buy? 200,000 credits? Or 50,000? I don't know, a lot. I've spent hundreds times the value of the tank on equipment for it. Coated optics, ventilation. This is all just stuff that I had spare from other tanks that I'd sold. There's no gun rammer on this thing. You can't make the shell load any faster, but it takes less than 3 seconds to reload the thing when you fire anyway. Vents, great investment on these things. 100% crew, absolutely fantastic investment on any tier 2 or 3 vehicle. It just gives you that much more of an edge over everybody else on the battlefield, and you don't really need it in a tank this good. I mean, 160 hit points, tier 2 vehicle, doesn't have a lot of health. Less than the Panzer II. Less than the Panzer 35T. But it doesn't matter, because you can penetrate and kill these things. That thing could have 100 health, and it would still get kills in tier 2 and 3 games, purely because the armour is so incredibly good. Now, weaknesses, well, I mentioned those little weak spots at the front here on the driver's hatch, and this little hatch here, but another weakness is the fact that it only has a 75 horsepower engine. Yes, that's right, not 750, 75. Now, it says it can do 37 kilometers per hour. Don't believe what you read in the news. This is a slow tank. It can get a surprising clip of speed up, but it needs to be going downhill to achieve that. Yeah, it can do 37 kilometers per hour, and you'll find when you come down the hill on Himmelsdorf in an encounter battle, yeah, you can reach a decent speed. But as soon as it levels out onto flat ground, that speed bleeds off very, very quickly. Now, it does have very, very good traverse speed. 40 degrees per second is pretty fast, and the turret turns a lot quicker than you'd expect as well. 47 degrees turret traverse. The view range is it's for tier 2, 330 meters isn't bad, and of course it's a premium vehicle, so there is no research tree for it. It is what you get when you buy it. So there's no upgraded turret that you can fit to increase the view range. So I had spare coated optics lying around from other tanks that I've sold, and I just slapped them on. Every little helps. Every advantage you can get in a low tier game gives you so much more of an advantage than you'd expect on an equivalent higher tier tank, because nobody, other than people who play these things for fun, tricks out tier 2 and 3 tanks, or tier 1 tanks in equipment like this. So every little advantage you can have in a low tier game, it just exponentially adds more value to the tank, because nobody else uses them. Signal range actually has a very, very good signal range, but the kind of maps that you get in these low tier vehicles tend to be the smaller maps, with a couple of exceptions like Prokhorovka and Malinovka, but generally you're fighting on Province, you're fighting on Himmelsdorf, and smaller maps like that. Now, the gun is crap. No two ways about it. I mean, it gets the job done. It's a tier 1 gun, 37mm, but it's not an autocannon, it's a proper tank gun. It's got a quick rate of fire, 26.25 rounds per minute. Average penetration, again, 41mm. It has trouble penetrating itself. If you come across another one of these things, you're going to have trouble against him. You always really need to be aiming for that driver's hatch. That brings us on to another weakness of the tank, which we'll get onto when I've covered the stats of the gun. Average damage, 40, and that sounds rubbish. Well, it is rubbish, but don't forget we're talking about tanks that only have 160 hit points, so 4 shots you can kill another one of these things. Most things at this tier will die in 4 shots from that gun, which isn't bad, and the accuracy is pretty shocking, but at mid to close range it's certainly good enough, and you can still get kills with this. Well, not so much kills as hits with this at long range, because you carry 100 rounds of ammo, so just keep firing. You're never going to run out. Aiming time is fantastically good, 1.7 seconds. So that's really, really good. Way, way, way shorter than the reload. I forget what the exact reload is on this thing, but it's certainly less than 3 seconds, which is nice. Now, I did talk about, when I was talking about aiming for the weaknesses like the driver's port, that there is another weakness that this tank has, and that's the fact that it only has 2 crew. And anybody who knows where to shoot these things is going to be shooting for that driver's hatch there. You tend to get your driver killed a lot in this thing, and for that reason I have Jack of all trades on my commander, because this thing is slow. I mean, it is seriously slow, and if your driver gets killed and you don't have a repair kit, first aid kit, or you've already used your first aid kit and the driver gets killed again, and it does happen, this thing is just too slow to be driving around without a driver. So definitely want, there we go, Jack of all trades, so the commander can take over from the driver. You'll still be slower, but you won't be as slow as if you just had a dead driver and the commander didn't have Jack of all trades. For the driver, I've given him clutch braking, just to make it turn even faster. Any other skills you could have gone for? Well, clutch braking, probably not the best choice actually. I mean, it's not a bad idea, but I would have definitely, well, off-road driving is probably a better choice for this tank, just because it is so incredibly slow. And this will get you better acceleration and speed when you're off-road. So that's probably a better idea than clutch braking. But, you know, I've already got 76% in clutch brake and I ain't changing it now. Equipment, well, it's a tier 2 vehicle, seriously. It doesn't need equipment. However, I would definitely say ventilation, just for an extra 5% on all your crew skills. I mean, there we go, that's a 116% driver. The commander is also the gunner. Oh, I forgot to mention that, yeah. There you go. The commander doesn't just get commander skills, he also gets gunner skills. So, yeah, you could go for snapshot. Oh, he's also the radio operator. Bloody hell, he's a busy guy, isn't he? So, yeah, and he's also the loader. Oh my god, what does the driver do? Doesn't he do anything, is that it? He just drives the tank. Let's have a look. Yeah, look at that, lazy bastard. You'd think he'd help the poor bloody commander out. But anyway, yeah, wide range of skills to choose from in the commander, but I still say you want Jack of all trades, because the driver is going to get killed. It just happens with annoying regularity. So there's the tank, and I've had some... Oh, one final thing. It's usually not that cost effective to use first aid kits, repair kits, fire extinguishers on these low tier tanks, because it's 3,000 credits a pop. And even in a good game, you're not going to make more than 10,000 in one of these tanks. So, you know, you use a repair kit, and even if you've had a great game, and you do usually get great games at this thing, where you just wiped out 30% of your profits. However, I would definitely use a first aid kit. Not so much the repair kit, not so much the fire extinguisher, definitely a first aid kit. Just because your driver likes to get himself killed on this thing. If you come across anybody who's used to fighting these tanks, they will put every shot they can through that hatch there, and they'll kill your driver. So you definitely want to carry a first aid kit into battle on this thing. Or another thing you could do, which works quite well, is a large first aid kit. Just never use it. And the reason you have a large first aid kit but you never use it is, well, one, it costs 50 gold, and two, plus 15% the crew protection from critical damage, which will reduce the chance that you're going to lose the driver if people start putting shots through that driver's hatch. So that's an idea, but I just prefer to go with a first aid kit and that I can, you know, use for when that just that 15% extra protection might not be enough. So that's how I play it anyway. Anyway, I've blabbed enough. Let's take this little monster into battle and see how the micro mouse does. Well, here we are on Himmelsdorf. You do get this map quite often at these low tiers. One thing I would like you to pay attention to, however, this is a tier 3 game, and look at that, I'm a tier 2 premium, but I'm ranked above all of the tier 3s. Even the matchmaker knows how dangerous this little bugger is. I don't know if you noticed there, but you saw the speed that we got up while we were coming down the hill there on Himmelsdorf, but as soon as we came around the corner, back down to 26 kph again. So that 37 km/h top speed is well, it's not a lie, but good luck with that. 24 to 26 kilometers per hour is really your limit on this thing. And going through obstacles, this thing can have big problems. It really slows down. And it can have problems pushing trees over. It does have very, very good aiming time though. So we're looking for trouble, and nobody down here. Now in higher tier games there is usually a bit of a fight, even in an encounter mode, on this road in Himmelsdorf, but nobody. Tactics, just, no, nobody thinks about tactics in low tier games. It is definitely very much every man for himself.
Looks like that one went right through. We've hit them hard.
There we go. Bounce, 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 bounce. 12 damage.
That's gotta hurt.
Little bugger gets away on 10%. Jammy sod.
We nailed it back.
Oh, T26.
We've got them. Penetration. Looks like that one went right through.
A T26 doesn't have a bad gun, but I mean, you know, look at this. Bounce, 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 bounce. He hit me once, penetrated once for 33 damage. It doesn't sound like a lot, but I'm down to 72% now after 2 hits. And the first hit was just a 12 damage penetrating autocannon shot. So, while you're not taking massive amounts of damage when they do penetrate, you're not completely invulnerable in this thing. But all you have to do is angle. And you can make it quite hard for them even to get through that driver's hatch. Certainly when I come up against another micro mouse, it's a devil's own job to try and penetrate and kill him. I used to save a couple of rounds of gold ammo purely for taking out other micro mouses.
Punched right through their armor. Enemy vehicle destroyed.
With this sneaky little bugger.
It bounced off. One of our trucks is damaged.
There you go. High explosive shot from the SU-18 hit me for 2 damage. It was a direct hit, but just couldn't get through the armor. See where I've been hit. See one hole on the front. I'm not sure. Yeah, can't really see anything else. A couple of little bounce marks there. And there's only one T46 left. And oh, sneaky little sod. How did he get back there? Oh, he's running away from that other T26. Look how slow this thing is. Look at the acceleration. 18, 19, 20, 21. It's just awful mobility. You'll find that bites you in the ass sometimes, especially on larger maps like Karelia.
Enemy is hit.
Oh, they put a hole in me there for 48. Oh, that one bounced.
Enemy armor is damaged.
See the angle I'm presenting to it?
Nailed it back.
And there it goes. Yeah, larger maps like Karelia, particularly on Assault, if you're on the attacking side, you start going down one side of the map and it takes you forever to get there. And if it turns out to have been the wrong decision and the other side of the map starts collapsing, there is nothing you can do about it. You are just too slow. So, well, don't forget this is only a tier 2 machine, and that's 2000 XP. Doubled, first win of the day, so 1000 XP in a tier 2 tank. And we earned 11,000 credits. And our repairs, 215. How did we do? Well, we took 12 hits. That's nothing in this thing. I've had games where I've received 60, 70 hits. It's purely from people spraying you with autocannon shells that don't have a hope in hell of penetrating. You know, you get lots of steel walls on this tank. 26 shots fired, 21 hit the target. So medium, short range work. The gun's good enough. The penetration on the gun's good enough, the damage on the gun's good enough. You can usually 3 or 4 shot kill most things that you come across. That wasn't a great game, but you know, it was fairly average. We can definitely do better than that. This game was a horrible, horrible loss. I pretty much got the only kills that our team gained on this particular map, but it just gives you some idea of how incredibly tough this tank is.
We've hit them hard. Penetration. Enemy armor is destroyed.
Oh, that was a nasty old hit. Down 50%. I'm just going to pull the view back so you can see the amount of damage that I take. And note that I am pretty much holding this entire flank alone. Everybody else is... well, I don't know what the hell they're doing. And there's a bounce.
We nailed it bad.
Now technically,
One of our tracks is
these
damaged.
shots are doing damage, but they're just damaging the tracks, or they're bouncing off. I must have taken, I don't know, 40 or 50 hits in this game.
Penetration. We didn't even scratch them. Enemy armor is hit. We didn't even scratch them.
Look at it. They just...
That one bounced. One of our tracks is gone.
and all they're succeeding in doing is damaging my tracks. Now I've taken 2 hits. One of those was from a friendly LOL tractor
That's gotta hurt.
before I
That's gotta
defended
hurt.
myself and killed him.
They're hit.
And now we're starting to take hits.
Gotcha.
And I think it's that Panzer II. Tiny, tiny little hits. Somebody managed to get through me with an autocannon.
Enemy is hit. They're knocked out.
And yeah, somebody on my own team is trying to shoot me up from behind. But look at how tough this thing is.
Enemy armor is destroyed. We're immobilized. Enemy vehicle destroyed.
Yep, it's a friendly fire from the back there.
Get out.
And it's a LOL tractor without an autocannon who finishes me off. So that was actually a 5-kill game. But look at how tough this little bugger is. And this was one of the more depressing losses of the day. 2 of our tanks are AFK the entire game. That enemy T26 and AT1 survived and won, killing everybody else on our team. As soon as I was, I mean, I basically held this flank pretty much alone for the entire game. Yeah, there was an H-35 behind me, but all he succeeded in doing was spray me with autocannon fire from behind. He actually did some damage to me, and we held off 5 enemy tanks. Actually, we held off 6 enemy tanks, but we could only kill 5 of them. So that was quite depressing. But if nothing else, it just illustrated how incredibly tough this thing is to kill, especially if the enemy are only using autocannons. So that was too depressing. Let's have another game. So we hit the battle button again, and we're straight back in Himmelsdorf. You don't have the same map selection in these lower tier games that you do in the higher tier games, although there is one map in particular that you can get in a lower tier game that you don't get in higher tier games, and that's Province. Now Province isn't too bad. It does suit these lower tier matches because you don't have the view range that you do in tier 5 and up. So you can't immediately spot the enemy tanks in the spawn point. So Province does work quite well. But we're back on Himmelsdorf, and this time we're still at the top of the matchmaking list, but it's only a Tier 2 game. Now note, the other team does have two H35 Tier 2 French light tanks. Now the H35 is basically this tank. It's the version of this tank that the Germans captured in the Battle for France. So 1 kill, but we could do better than that. This Renault FTAC tank destroyer, he played a good game here as well. Here we go, bouncing those autocannon shots. And this is why I don't usually like using autocannons in Tier 2 matches. It's not that you can't kill one of these micro Mausers with an autocannon, but you generally need to drive right up to them and spray them straight through the driver's port to reliably penetrate. And they don't do that much damage. I mean, I have killed these things with my Panzer II, but you have to get close. And getting around his sides and rear is no guarantee of success because he's got the same armour everywhere. Here's that lousy speed. And of course even a tiny obstacle like a lamppost really slows you down in this thing. 75 horsepower engine is just not good enough. And you can find when you're driving one of these things on a large map like Karelia, particularly in encounter mode, you go down one side and it turns out that you're actually needed on the other side of the map. There is nothing you can do about it, you are just too slow. Oh, T2 medium tank, his 37mm gun got through. 43 damage. I'll finish him off. And then we'll finish off this AT1. Bloody hell, can't believe that missed. There he goes. And they've got a BT2. And this is quite lucky. Their BT2 has crashed. He's never loaded in. And the BT2 is probably the most dangerous tank for the Micro Mouse in this game. With its 58mm penetration gun. And there he is. So this is a free kill. And now all they have left are two H35s. Unsurprisingly, the two tanks on the enemy team that are as well armoured as I am are the only ones left alive. And you'll see just how hard to kill they are. Well, there's one. Alright, I don't have to drive all the way up the other end of the map. See this Renault FTC here with me. He's got 4 kills. I'm on 5. Can I get Top Gun? Well, probably not. Now, you see how I'm trying to find a spot where my penetration marker turns green, and it's not easy. And see, he's angling, and it's pretty much the driver's hatch, but at that angle your best shot is to aim straight at his gun. And the Renault FTC gets the kill, so 5 kills each for me and the Renault. And there's 2 of us trying to finish off the other H35, and there, they finally get him. It's an MS1 that kills him. So that's the Panzer 38H735F, the Micro Mouse, and you can expect to get this sort of score every time you play with this tank, even when you lose, and that can be frustrating. I played a whole bunch of games on this thing over the course of the last 2 days, where I would get scores like this or more, and the team would still lose because, you know, sitting there with 5 kills and we lose 15-5. That happens with depressing regularity when you're playing in low-tier games, unfortunately, because, you know, that's just low-tier games for you. Everybody's riding around spraying and praying with autocannons using auto-aim. And you're going to find that people driving this tank in particular are very, very dangerous because they know what they're doing. And usually, as you know, like with me, the tank's fitted with modules that cost 100 times the value of the tank itself. And it's fun. And as you can see, I mean, look at this. Alright, that's double, but that's 1111 experience in a tier 2 vehicle and 10,000 credits. It's very, very hard to lose money on these things. I mean, it doesn't get a credit bonus multiplier or anything. It just gets so many kills that it's so hard to kill. Unusually in this one, we only took 4 hits. You will get a lot of steel walls in this tank, provided you survive and your team isn't completely useless. And you're going to make on average 8 to 10 or 1,000 or more credits in your games, regardless of whether you win or lose. Purely because it's so hard to kill, and while they're bouncing shots off you harmlessly, as they did in this game and the previous one, you're racking up the kills. It's a lot of fun to play. It's one of the most fun tanks in the game. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will catch you next time.